folks, I know there's a history here. I'd like to get this hearing in today. You know, everybody needs to just focus on the relevant facts, okay? I know there's a history here.
Are you talking up by Sunset Mart? Up the hill by the gas station?
Yeah.
Okay. Why did you...
What is up, guys? Welcome to the Transparency. Check this out. This came in the mail. It says, my favorite mod, and it's a big old face. Look at that. Yeah! It's a birthday month joke shirt, so it's pretty funny. Again, welcome to the Transparency. How are we feeling today? A lot of things going on. Been busy over here. I'm going to show you guys some body cam. Going to talk about the Brian Drake case. Going to reveal Brian Drake's toxicology report. Yes. Can you believe it? Brian Drake working on patients. They're trying to say allegedly he was intoxicated working on these patients. Okay. But they failed to test any material in his office that would lead them to say that there was bottles of vodka, water bottles that would normally have water in them, that they were filled with vodka instead. So, with that said, come get yourself some. Look at this. Sorry, I'm just enjoying myself over here. So here we go. Let's see what you guys want to see first. We'll start off with good old Hector, bringing in Hector here. Share the screen with Hector. Love sharing the screen with Hector. I'm going to be sharing the screen with Marty Ryan here in a minute as well. Yeah. So let's see. All right. People are out there asking me to put all the stuff with Brian Drake in a playlist. I will do that. So don't fret. I will be doing that. Let's take a look at. Let's see here. Sally, Dr. Sally Ann Aiken. Boom. Can't beat it. Negative, 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 positive. We got some positives. Positive. Alcohol. Right there. So Brian Drake, they're saying this is from, okay, they're saying this is from Mr. Brian Drake. Drinking vodka while he was working. So there you go. Zoom in there for you. Get a nice little look there. Okay, now I'm going to show you guys something. They said that Brian Drake was drinking while he was working, and he was drinking the vodka from the water bottles, like something like this was on his desk, okay? And that they were full of vodka. Now I'm going to show you what I think about all that shit. First of all, they didn't test anything. So they never tested and took in evidence these water bottles that they said had vodka in them. Okay? That's number one. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you the desk of Brian Drake. Let me see. No. Well, we'll get to that. Let me just stay in the order that I want to stay in. All right. Give it a second here to load. I want to show you a couple different things, and then we're going to talk about Brian Drake's leg being broken in 3 places and what happened on the night before this this incident, which was literally just weeks, 5 weeks before he would be murdered. Brian Drake said that he slipped and fell on some ice, and he broke his ankle in 3 places. Broke his leg, tib, fib, blah, like broke in 3 places. Except for everybody that we've talked to include the brother of Jennifer Drake's sister, who is in the medical field, said there's no way that his injury is consistent with him slipping and falling on the ice. When you get a fracture of what he had, that is something crushing, like a baseball bat being taken to your body. You would have to crush your limb. You don't slip and fall. Like, you have to have some impact there to crush it. So with that said, I did some research to see what was going on in Brian Drake's life the day before the murder, or the slip and fall, the night before, then that day. Also, what day did he truly have this alleged slip and fall? Okay. All right. All right, take a look. Move this over. All right, as you can see there, see those 2 water bottles right there? The one right here, this one has been consumed and it's been opened. Like, obviously it's not a full bottle of water. This one, though, is a full bottle of water, okay? And then he has this little tumbler. All right, that was what was all on his desk. All right, you see that? Now, the reason I'm showing this is because you would think that you would take these items and collect them if you are then going to say and put out there that Brian Drake was drinking vodka from his office, and chugging vodka in a way that he would have this type of alcohol content level in his system at the time that he was dead, deceased. However, this seal has not been broken. All right. And so these look like water to me. Unless you were to test these, how would you know? And let me ask you guys a question. What would ever make you, as an officer, open up, which clearly they didn't even open this one, as you can see, open up bottles of water and go sniffing them to see if they then in fact smelled like alcohol? Brian's report didn't come back that he had this toxicology until way after the scene was processed and done with. So it wasn't like you go back there and be like, oh, let me go sniff these bottles. Those bottles were thrown away. They were nowhere to be found. Again, they were not tested. So it was like once this came back to say that he had alcohol in his system, we're going to say that he was there was a bottle of vodka in his car. There is no picture of any bottles of vodka in his car to date. If they're trying to put that out there, then it must be in discovery that they're not turning over. But there is no bottles of vodka that are seen in Brian Drake's office, no bottles of vodka in his car, that if they do exist, they just have not put them into any form of reports. So, but the thing here is that they needed to say something, because how does Brian have alcohol in his system? I thought he was seeing patients all day, right? Well, what about lunchtime? What about if he was having drinks with somebody afterwards that came to the, to meet up with him at his office, and they brought beer or look, they have to somehow say, okay, here we have this guy that has alcohol in his system. And it's not just a little bit. He's almost legally drunk. So what's up? How does this happen? But yet every patient that he has ever had, not a single one of them have ever said that they've ever smelled alcohol on Brian Drake when they've been working, like when he's been working on them. Never. So how sloppy is this to say? But they want to say that these 2 bottles of water had alcohol, but yet they don't take them into evidence. They never test them. And so therefore this is completely unfounded. How do I know that? Lana, how do you know they didn't take them in there? Well, because you have to do an inventory list and you have to leave it there when you have your search warrant. And on the inventory list, this shit is not motherfucking listed. That's how I know. Okay. So go ahead and check it off. Now, in Brian Drake's text messages, does he talk about having the shakes that because he masks his drinking or his pain, he drinks to take away the pain? Absolutely. It's all over text messages to his alleged steroid dealer, possible pain pill dealer. And I do have absolute 100% proof of that. I have absolute 100% proof that the cops were watching his vehicle and sitting outside of his car at his office. And the most recent developments is I have proof that Eldora Gatchel and Brian Drake would exchange I love yous in text messages. Now, maybe you say I love you to your friends, which is totally normal. Okay. But is it totally normal that your chiropractor would be contacted by you to say, hey, did you happen to find my earring in your office? When do you lose your earrings when you are getting adjusted by a chiropractor? To even think that your chiropractor would have your earrings, or an earring rather. Now, I've never contacted my chiropractor to say, hey, did I leave my earring in your office? June says, well, actually I have. Well, there you go, June. Taking off your sweater. Make me play a song for you. Anyways, moving on. Again, the type of relationship that Eldora Gatchel had with Brian was a very, what anybody would say is, I tell my friends I love them all the time. I'm very close with the people that I say that to. Now, a guy that's my chiropractor that I've seen for years, we don't ever text "I love you." But again, whatever. So, again, just throwing that out there. Now, let's talk about Brian Drake and his habits. Brian Drake's habits were that he collected cash, check, and or as recently as January of 2018, he started taking, debit cards, credit cards that you could swipe through on like a square type card. Now, from his patient records and scheduling, one could take a lot of time and go through and see daily how much money he was reporting that he would get, because he had a system that he would check if he got cash from the person, if he got it in a card. But he also did something what you call a trade. And so basically he's bartering with whatever his deal is that he offers, which obviously chiropractic care. He would then get something in return from those people. Now, I was able to come across his steroid and pain pill provider and how this person paid and how Brian tracked them. Brian Drake, you can either call this man stupid, desperate. I don't know. This man was marking down what pills he was receiving and when he was receiving them in exchange for his chiropractic care to somebody else. Now, how fucking stupid can you be to write down that you just got a bottle of, blah, blah, blahs? Why even have a card on file for them? You are literally tracking this person giving you illegal steroids and pain pills. Okay. Wild, I know, right? Now, his normal practice would be that Brian Drake would not delete text messages, would not delete contacts. Okay. He would leave his phone, so if you were to text him, there would be a thread of it, meaning he could go back and look at his phone and see the text message exchanges. He never made it a habit to delete the existence of a text message and or a contact, except when I've been doing my research, I noticed that on 11/4/2019, so I'm going to use handy dandy Hector here. Share screen, oh my God. So here we go, sharing screen. So Brian Drake was murdered on 3/12/2020. Okay. Now, on 11/4, okay. On 11/4/2020, it would be a day that he was in Bonners Ferry. Okay. Brian Drake made up reasons that he couldn't take patients. Brian Drake then receives a text message on 11/4/2019 at 1:35 p.m. that says, "Welcome to Canada." All right. What the fuck is Brian Drake driving into Canada? going into Canada for? He is supposed to be taking patients, right? He's in Bonner's Ferry. He's seeing his patients. Well, nope. At 1:35, Brian Drake is getting a text message that says, "Welcome to Canada." Then, same day, Aldora Gatchell is asking Brian, "Did you find my earring?" Okay. Brian doesn't return anybody's calls or texts that day until the following day on 11/5/2019 at 10:39 p.m. He starts responding and into this saying, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I messaged you back, blah, blah, blah." Now, on 2/3/2020, Brian Drake saw patients in Sandpoint. Or I'm sorry. He saw patients in Sandpoint on 2/4/2020. But the night before, he received a text message from a person, and I'll just say the person is Jane Doe. And this person said, "Hey, where are you located at nowadays? I need to get adjusted. Can you fit me in?" And this was a number that came up as just a regular phone number. It did not come up as a patient name or in his phone log. And he said, "Well, who might this be?" And then this person said the name and said, "You worked on me like a year or two ago," or something like that. And they needed to get in. So Brian set them up with an appointment this following day at 2:30 p.m. Okay. Now, this is allegedly the same day that Brian Drake would then call his wife, text his wife rather, and say, "I'm going to have to be heading to the emergency room. I think I broke my ankle. I think I broke my leg, blah, blah, blah." On this day. Then Brian Drake deletes any interaction that they had with this person. They try to delete that this contact ever happened from the night before for setting up that appointment. Why would Brian Drake delete a message? He never deletes messages. He wanted to delete it from his phone so there would be no paper trail of that. And then is going to the ER that afternoon by 4:30, which should have been after that scheduled appointment. Now, the only other time that has happened, y'all, you ready for this? Saddle up, bitches. Is in the summer of 2019. There's a family by the name of Icardos, and they have a large family. And they go to school with the Drakes. And this family was looking for a new chiropractor, or maybe just a chiropractor in general. This family started seeing Dr. Drake. Now, in the summer of 2019, Dr. Drake, okay, he suffers what people say he suffered and re-injured his back, which led him to then have this spinal surgery. Okay. And this happened in July, they thought around the holidays, like July 4th. Now, I went through all of Drake's text messages and phone calls and everything to do with June and July of 2019. Well, Drake was getting fed up with his wifey poo. She was always on him about something. He was after work going and having drinks with his buddies, doing beer, playing the guitar, because she wants to nag him and say, "Hey, do you know where my gardening mittens are, gloves are?" And wanting to set up their house like an Airbnb Just whack-a-dack shit. Anyways, so they're bickering, but on July 31st, 2019, Drake gets a text message from a number that is not stored in his phone. And it said, "Hi, I am blank." And it was one of the sons of Corey Icardo. That's the mom. And then they have a dad, and they have 2, 3, 4 kids. And out of the blue, he messages and says, "Hey, my mom's out of town, but wanted me to message and ask if me and my brothers and my dad could have an appointment to get our, backs adjusted." Drake said, "Yeah, sure." Gives him an appointment. Okay. And now this is on July 31st, 2019. Drake would then, he was saying things like, "Hey, when are you guys going to be here?" They had texted back and forth. And then Drake, after this scheduled appointment, he then deletes out of his contacts that number and any text messages associated with this visit. He didn't go in and save the number as that kid, he deleted ever having contact with that kid for that appointment with the dudes in the family. And it was literally right. This date is so important because then Drake's back issues about his back and how he had this paddleboarding accident or whatever they're trying to say that it got tweaked again, blah, blah. This happened right before that. Just like this happened right before his leg. And those are the only 2 occasions ever that Drake has went about out of his way to make sure to delete the existence of either one of these messages ever being there, with the exception of his steroid and pain pill provider. Those are the only 3 times that he's ever deleted messages. And one can only now say, if you can ask yourself if you think it's relevant. Do you think that it is relevant that Drake never deletes messages and the night before he gets busts his ankle in 3 places needing surgery and then would be murdered on 3/12/2020? Okay. Then that summer deletes messages only to then have a huge back blowout where he has then spinal surgery and he's out for 2 months. And deleting this stuff. Why would you delete those messages? Why would those messages need to be deleted? I think it's very relevant. It is out there, 100%. You're going to tell me that when the wife was away, the dad and the kids' sons had an appointment scheduled just to get ambushed in a sense, possibly? Then a person out of the blue says, "I want to set up an appointment. Hey, where are you at?" And then literally that same day, he gets his ankle busted, back busted, ankle busted. And literally the days before that, he is deleting messages. Now, I went ahead and double checked to see the number that texted Drake for this incident. Did it match the name that they gave for the appointment? And it did. So was this a luring setup? Why would you delete this? And then the same thing. I went and matched that unknown cell number on this day. Who did it belong to? It belonged to that family. And then I shit you not, that same number down the road in March, 311, Texas Drake. You can't make this shit up. If Drake was having an issue with hitting on hot moms, okay, and children that weren't really children, but like high school boys are seeing you be some type of way with their mom, and then they tell their dad about it, it's going to cause a problem, right? Well, it caused so much of a problem that in the summer of 2018 at Silverwood Amusement Park in Water Park, Drake was confronted by a woman, husband, kid. He was 16 years old, told his dad that his mom had the hots for the doctor. The doctor had the hots for the mom. And lo and behold, 2 years later, then, at the time of the murder, they were going through a divorce. The police, ISP, felt that this was so relevant that they determined that a 16-year-old was capable of doing this and put him as a person of interest and put the dad, or I should say the ex-husband of that woman and the dad of the 16-year-old as a person of interest. I went and double checked the records to see Drake and the last time that he had this woman patient as a patient. And I went and checked to see if this woman ever was paying, was she just getting free rides, things like that. And what came out from my investigation is that a date in July, Drake did not charge this woman. And I'm very curious to see if it was after the embarrassing encounter that happened at Silverwood Amusement and Water Park. And then she was no longer going to Drake after that point. Because it caused, like I said, issues with, it was, she claimed that it just caused more issues than it was worth. You know, okay, I can go to a different chiropractor, like it's whatever. Now, I've played interviews with people that said, oh yeah, Drake was a big flirt. Drake asked me out to dinner. Drake asked me if I wanted to give him a hand job. Drake would sometimes wear his ring, sometimes wouldn't wear his ring. And then I found that Drake and Jennifer went and saw what you would call as a therapist or like a counselor or whatever. And it's called for marriage recovery. So if you have a history of unfaithful acts, or if these people were in fact swingers, you're not going to marriage recovery. If you're in an open marriage, who gives a fuck? Fuck whoever you want. Dance around naked, show your ass, do whatever you want. You would have no issues. You wouldn't say we need to go to counseling for that. Now, something that I thought was interesting is that during these investigative interviews, prior to Drake having the building that he had where he saw his patients, where he was murdered, he had the little hut next to the place where it was like a little woodworking shop. And this place was owned at the time by the Harding family. Okay. And this guy, Richard, was interviewed. And in this interview, he said, well, I actually was one of the first people to meet Drake. Great guy, blah, blah. And he's going on. He's like, yeah, he was telling me back about 10 years ago, one of his patients came to him and wanted him to give him a referral so that he can get disability. And Drake said that he wouldn't do it. And that once he went ahead and said, I'm not going to do it, that this patient then came into his place where he worked and burnt down his office. I didn't believe it myself, y'all. I said, shut the fuck up. This cannot be. Like, I need to rewind this shit. So I rewind it. And sure as shit, the guy said that Drake said that, oh God, yeah, one of the last places I had one of my patients wanted disability. I didn't give it to him. You know, I wouldn't sign the thing. And next thing I know, they're burning down my store. Excuse me? Excuse me? You guys know none of this is fucking true. You guys do know this, right? There's no where in this investigation. So don't you think that these police officers would have been like, wait, what? Somebody tried to burn down Drake's place? Like, when the fuck did this happen? Like, who do we need to go ask about this? Maybe we should ask the wife, you know? They don't ask the wife shit about this. They don't say, hey, did anybody ever try to burn down your building? I mean, is that kind of relevant? So there's been an attempted homicide on Drake before. So I want to play you something. Damn, Idaho got some crazy motherfuckers. Speaking of crazy motherfuckers, you guys do know that there is a old ISP agent that is on trial for murder right now up there in Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County. He staged a suicide for his wife after blowing out her brains and, put her in the shower or whatever and called the police. And he was an ex-ISP dude. And so he's standing trial right now for this staged murder turned into making it look like a suicide. Go check it out. For killing his wifey. Yeah, and she was actually in the process of divorcing him, and he didn't want to split the $2 million worth of assets. That's the state's case, but that is an ISP guy, and just to show you, what they have no problem trying to do, and thinking that other people are going to cover for them, and yeah. So hold on 1 second. Let me share this little. Hopefully everybody's having a great, great Tuesday. Feels like Friday over here. Loving it. Yeah, but let's have you listen in here. Because I didn't believe it myself. This thing takes forever sometimes to load. I do apologize. It's not me. I promise. I'm working with 52 terabits over here. 52 card pickup. Okay, that's not the one I wanted. This maybe is it. Okay, here we go. That's horrible. All right. How the fuck is this not playing? Oh, for shit's sakes. Mm-mm. All right, there's a good look at the window. That's how they're saying that the window was closed and shot through. Now, the only thing about all of this is that off to the left there was an item that got moved at some point because the Kleenex was there, but then there was an item all the way on the left hand like ledge area that was over there. So that item was eventually moved because this picture doesn't have it. Oh, upside down. Yeah. Upside down would actually reverse it the other way versus like turning it. But wanted you guys to see that. No. Hmm. Let me show you guys something else. Oh, there you go. What do you guys think of that? Take a look. Take a look-see. What do you think? What do you think about that? Mm-mm-mm. What you think about that, apples? So professional. This is how we do it in Idaho, baby. Look at that. Look at that. Too bad the angle was an upward angle that Drake's bullet was traveling. So I don't know what the fuck they're doing right now. The Emmy's like, the fuck? The fuck y'all talking about, man? Our victim has a penetrating wound that is upward, going through rib 7. Upward angle. So how could Drake, like, excuse me? But this is what we're looking at here. And then what else we're looking at here? We're looking at let's see. We got some measurements. Let's see if we can get these measurements at. Okay. So if we do this, share this one. See what we're looking at. Now, you guys ready for me to just like blow it out of the water for you? I'm gonna move it. I'm gonna zoom it in. Look at that. Okay, so hold on. Let me tight. Now, let's go back to what I shared the other day. Video. Let's see. I shared. Okay, take a look. Do you see?
Is there any casings in here?
Over right there, that deep, that bottle that has like the pump on it. See that pump?
Is there any casings in here?
We haven't really looked around yet.
Okay. Actually, hold on. I don't know why it did that so small. The fuck. All right. Okay, so right here, there should be a pump. And I'll show you what I mean. Okay, ready? Okay, do you see this deep blue thing? See this right here? Deep blue. Oh, thank you there. 5 gifts, pass them out like Oprah over there. That deep blue cleanser right there. Do you see where the tissues are? You see that order right there? You see that order? Okay. Right here on your little windowsill. Well, what you are supposed to do as a officer, as an investigator, as you are not supposed to touch a damn motherfucking thing. Okay? And you should be using gloves. And you should not move anything. Okay? But you see that deep clean bottle right there? You see that tissue bottle or tissue box right there. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you body cam footage from the night of the murder when they were in that office. Okay? So do you see that order right there? This is the next day that they're taking this, they're processing the scene between, 3. I mean, they didn't get Drake off that. Drake was almost on the floor for 24 hours. Okay, but pay attention to that. Now, here we go. So I'm going to share with you the body cam from that night in that office to show you what it looks like, to show you what it looked like when they arrived, okay? And to show you that this scene has been 100% tampered with. Like, no questions asked, nada. Like, 100 tampered with. All right, so we're going to go with okay. Okay. Ready? Now. There you go. Do you see all the way up against that wall, that box, cardboard box right there? You see that? See the tissue? See that cardboard box right all the way up against the wall? You see all the way, it's all the way pushed up against that sill all the way to the right, okay? Now, where is that? Where is that? Do you see, you see the tissue, bottom right there? Okay. Hang tight. Let me show you. Do you see this? It's gone. Do you see this? Now, where is the cardboard box that's supposed to be right there? Where is it? Okay, so hold on. Again, I'm going to show you guys the order of this. So when the cops first, they say they allegedly respond to the scene. This is body cam footage of them allegedly getting there. Now, right here, in 2017, they put out their policy with recording and taking pictures of anything. Do you see this right here? You see that deep box right there? See that? Okay, now I just want to show you guys something. See how he's using his phone? Okay. See that? Oh. Now let me use this. Audio and video recordings, July 2017. When to record. We recommend the use of mobile video and audio recorders to accurately document events. This is Idaho policing policy. Bonners Ferry, okay, Idaho. Now, when to record. At the beginning of each shift, it is your responsibility to ensure all components of the recording equipment are recording properly, including the camera, microphone, recorder, and monitor. Notify your supervisor immediately if there are any problems with the equipment. You should make every attempt to record all potentially dangerous or criminal field contacts, including but not limited to the following: emergency responses and pursuits. So when they were looking for that person allegedly, and all those assholes didn't have their body cam on, allegedly, okay, all of those people, once that was called in and they were either in their car or on foot, that is a pursuit, okay? traffic stops and investigations, interviews of criminal suspect, any action or communication with an arrestee during transport, vehicle searches and inventories. And then the bottom two here, instances where the recording may be useful for administrative, investigative, or prosecution. Any additional situations designed by your supervisor or agency head. Now, right here. This is when not to record, so you just can't go around recording people that you work with. It is noted, though, that if you, so here, all images, video and audio recordings or other similar items that are taken, recorded, or obtained under your authority as a peace officer are the property of the agency. Every picture that dude took with his phone on that night in question, guess who is getting it? Yours motherfucking truly. Truly's for the win. You should upload digital files from the device to our electronic storage system prior to the end of your shift, regardless of content. This is policy, motherfuckers. Whoop, whoop. All digital files will be stored in the original format to guarantee authenticity. In the original format. In the original format. Do you know what that means? That means I'm talking about these body cams, and they're telling me that it's 654, 653. All digital files will be stored in the original format to guarantee authenticity and ensure their integrity and admissibility as evidence. They shall be labeled and retained according to evidence storage rules, which I will get into another day. Now, here we go. Going back to showing this, and I'm about to bust it all the way up. So this body cam was literally timestamped at 19:01:21 hours, which is 7:01 and 21 seconds. Jennifer Drake didn't call in until 7:30. Now, how are you going to be able to argue that this was, oh, this time's off, man? Well, guess what you're supposed to do? You needed to write all that in your reports. You needed to make sure that all your systems were functioning, blah, blah, blah. You're doing all your reporting. Now, this man using his phone, he had two of them on him. This picture and everything he did with this phone is 100% ding, 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 Dr. Moore's if he wants it. And it's ours as public citizens here. That's part of the investigation. He was taking crime scene photos on duty with his device in Idaho policy. That is 100% discovery period. And your phone needed to be plugged in and downloaded its content right before your shift ended or at some point before your shift ended. Now, I'm feeling really frisky today. Okay, feeling real frisky. Not only can I prove right here, as I'm doing it in real time with all of you guys, where is that deep blue box? Where is it? Where is it? Why did they have to move it? I'm going to tell you why. You ready for it? Because I don't think anybody is ready for it. Because of the angle of where Dr. Drake's stool, and I'm about to show you where the stool was located, that they said he was sitting on in order to get hit with this bullet. No. First of all, I have all faith and belief that this shitty ass blind was flipped upside down, not turned the opposite way because the hole's on the other side. But if you flip it upside down, then it's not. Okay, that would turn it inside out just like a regular shirt that you would wear. Okay. And that's exactly what happened, is this was turned inside out. And that's exactly what Scott Roeder said back when me and him did an initial consult with this case. Okay. Because I was adamant that fucking window was shot out from the inside out, based on not the blinds, okay, based on the actual window itself. I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't the tighter part of like the bullet hole, wouldn't that be, he's like, that's going to be closest to the gun, like your tight hole. And then the, like it breaking out from that and spidering, like he explained it the day that he was on here. Okay. Now on the floor should be particles around Brian Drake. If he was blasted by sitting right behind this window, there should be particles on that sweater that shows the debris of glass particles. There are none. There are none. Okay, none. So not only can I prove that this scene was tampered with, I've proven that Drake's phone is being passed around to the police, and then the text messages of Drake are being then looked at by the police, and his phone is being operated and controlled by the police. All right. That then I'm showing here today with undeniable proof that this scene in this window, which is so important, was 100% tampered with, as that box is nowhere to be seen. That deep blue cardboard box is nowhere to be seen on this ledge after this body cam takes place. Now I'm going to tell you guys how special I am. Why? Because I want to. In Dr. Drake's office, Dr. Drake had a digital camera, or not a camera, but a digital piece clock. Okay. And this digital clock was located and gets scanned across, all right, by the camera on this man that's wearing the body cam. And I am 100% confident that with the right tools, right, that this, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Right. There we go. Right here. I'm going to share you some special scene. Here we go. Do you see this camera right here? Or I'm sorry, this clock right here? Okay. So you have the deep blue bottle. Look at that windowsill now. But you see that digital clock? I have different angles of that clock as I am trying to be able to prove, like I try to prove something, not just one way, two way, three way, as many ways as possible that things were altered. And that clock can literally prove what time this truly happened when these guys are claiming that they walked in there for the first time by kicking down the door. What the body cam also tells us is that the front door to this building was 100% unlocked and able to be entered. And Drake's phone shows that it's walking up along the side of the building, or actually, like when you really zoom in and you look at it, it could actually be that the phone was traveling inside the building. Okay. So when he moves and walks towards that window right there, his body cam approaches that clock. And I was able to to stop it on a couple different occasions where I got I thought a clear look to that, hey, I think somebody with some really special skills could enhance it and make it so that we can tell what time it is on that clock. Okay. This is just me giving you a whole perspective of the room. All right. So, and the main thing I really want to point out is that windowsill is everything. Okay. That windowsill 100% was tampered with. Stuff was moved around. Stuff was then not just moved around, but removed, period. Now, let's talk about what the stool would look like if, and in fact, Drake was sitting on it, right? So, let me pull up something. And these dudes are running for sheriff. Are you out of your fucking minds? Like, I can't even believe this shit. You got Dr. Moore. Hasn't done a thing to anybody. And he gets caught up in their bullshit. I don't know what y'all were into and what y'all do. But when you want to go including innocent people in your all fuckerage, that's when I get involved. I don't cover cases where I feel like I think it is what it is. This is anything but that. This is flat out sick. This is some sick ass shit. Let's take a look though. I'm gonna show you another little angle. You guys ever play photo hunt at the bars? Well, I used to own a bar. Before I owned a bar, I ran bars for a guy I dated in college, his parents. And nobody can fuck with me in photo hunt. But it really is paying off now. You know, I can find all the differences. But I want to show you guys a little something. Now, so I went back to take a look at little Alan Schleff's body cam. And because for whatever reason, I felt like he was covering his camera the most out of, anybody. So all right. So here I'm going to share this. This is like one of the best angles that I felt that I could get. when I was doing this. So this is Schleffy Pulleys. Okay, so I want you guys to take a look at over here. Okay, see how you have the deep blue box there? All right, and then you got this tissue box. And then you have the deep blue bottle with the pump. Now, so here we go. I'll show you another angle of I don't know why this sound is not playing the way that I want it to. Not happy about that. I'm gonna have to come back and do some things to make it play the sound that I want. But people always ask me, Lana, what's your theory? Okay, I don't do theories. I eliminate stuff. I eliminate possibilities. And what I can't eliminate is police corruption with this case because I've proven it. And I don't believe that the police get involved with things for any other reason. I mean, there has to be a reason. Like, no offense, but like, fuck you, I'm not going to do something. Like, I don't even know you, right? You have to go and find connections as to why would anybody care versus just doing your job to figure out who did this. Why would anybody have to care about what time this happened at or who's responsible for it? Like, what has to be kept hush hush about it? And that's when it becomes a narrative. So we can't have it that the good old doctor here was involved with, you know, running drugs or an informant or anything like that, because then the person that would be responsible for this is going to be in a different type of category. If we go with the narrative that, you know, another doctor was pissed that you're stealing patients, I mean, you're keeping everything under wraps that would indicate that anything bad was going on in the community with this man and with other people. So for me, I know for a fact, without a doubt, that there was nobody in that town that was stealing patients from this man or vice versa, okay? And that is what led to his death, 100%. Well, Lana, how can you say that? Because this guy was not busy enough. This guy did not see enough patients. This guy, in fact, was not working. He just had a back surgery, so he had two months of not even working after that surgery. Then he just had his leg busted, and then he didn't work for, I don't know, a week or two. He's only working in Bonners Ferry 2 days out of the week, and when he is there, okay, he is literally seeing a majority of Mennonite community, the Mennonite community. All right. This man was not stealing anybody's patients to the point in Bonners Ferry that you would be like, God, I need him out. That doesn't make any sense. Okay. Especially when we're talking about Dr. Moore is seeing somewhere in the upwards of like 50 to 70 patients a day. Okay. 50 to 70 patients a day. He has a whole damn staff. Like, girls that actually work in there and do like the putting on like your little, your STEM treatment that you would get on and stuff like that. And so Dr. Moore's bopping around to just do the adjusting of it, but then doing like the therapy that comes, and that's like when you're getting out your STEM. So, and where Dr. Drake is literally having a huge gap in his day of 3 hours of not seeing anybody, where he's canceling patients left and right and talking about, oh, I'm running late, or, oh, my wife needs me for this, or I got to go. My wife's father's having open heart surgery. That shit wasn't even happening. He was making stuff up to these people on why he had to cancel. And what the records will show is that he was going and drinking instead. So if Drake was to see, I don't know, 10 patients in the morning and 10 patients, in the afternoon, 20 patients. Let me put it to you this way. He had to drive out to Bonners Ferry because he didn't have any patients where he lived. Because he burned all of his bridges. He was working for people's companies, their practices, and then literally being unethical by going and seeing them and starting up a practice out in Bonners Ferry for the people that were traveling to go see him at these other people's practices. And so he was no longer having to give those people cuts out of the money, but the only way that he was ever known is because he was working for these doctors in, Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene. Well, he then has to travel to Libby, Montana. He has to travel to Bonners Ferry just to actually have patients. You understand that? Versus, I have a shit ton of patients here. I'm going to go out and build another practice here. I'm going to go out to this area and do this. That wasn't the case. The man had to go find work elsewhere because he didn't have it like that where he was living. And you can tell by, okay, if he's in Bonners Ferry on Mondays and Thursdays for full days, and he's in Sandpoint on Tuesdays and Fridays. Well, Fridays he rarely saw anybody. And Wednesdays it was just like at that Hayden office, which again dwindled on out because I don't know if like I said, his clientele was coming from the Mennonite community out here in Sandpoint and Bonners Ferry. So what he did is he cut out the person that he was paying probably like $5 a visit to, per client that he saw, and he kept the rest type of thing. So he says, fuck that, I don't need to give them my money. I'll just drive out and get an office in Bonners Ferry and see all those patients. Okay. So he cuts out having to pay the person that he was working for. But in retrospect, isn't that kind of like stealing someone's patients? Well, yeah, depending on what type of non-compete you put this man in. But absolutely, when I had a trivia business and I'd hire my trivia hosts, I had trivia in Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, different cities in Florida, the Virgin Islands, doing senior trivia at all the different senior recs. All of my people had to sign a non-compete that were host non-compete. That means you can't go and work for another trivia company. You also can't go and host trivia after you're done hosting, for my company within a 6-month period. This prevented, but I also paid my people very well. And I wanted part-time employees that were teachers that wanted to supplement their income. I love teachers. They are so important to our community. Teachers have the summers off. Teachers are always looking to supplement their income because teachers, unfortunately, I believe are the most underpaid profession out there, period. So Drake leaves Austin, after literally saying and doing inappropriate things with his patient to the point that they have to do a settlement, leaves Austin, comes to Post Falls, Coeur d'Alene area, teams up with Scott Crawford, starts doing work with Scott Crawford's practice, and then steals all of his Mennonite community. Puts an office in Bonners Ferry, but before he does that, he then goes to Amy Strapolsta in her practice, same thing. Started seeing clients once a week on Fridays out in Bonners Ferry, not telling her so she wouldn't see that they came to that office. So therefore, you know how sneaky ass fucking scandalous shit that is? That's dog shit, okay? You know what? That's called scamming, right? But Jennifer Drake, they actually tell you their character. They don't think there was anything wrong with it. It was his patients, and so he went all the way out to Bonners Ferry to see them, so why should she get a cut of it? Well, the only reason it's, when you say it's his patients, what do you mean from what? Oh, from Scott Crawford that he took, to get there? And then they were like, well, come out here. We can get you more people if you travel out here. Hence the Emma Fields. And see, this is another thing I think is just a complete conflict of interest. Emma Fields is bopping around as a massage therapist in town in Sandpoint and Bonners Ferry, and she's the most gossipy motherfucker out there talking all this him-ho bullshit, and yet she's pitting all these doctors against each other. Like, okay, I can bring you people, and I can bring you people, and I can bring you. How can you bring the same practice, multiple people? Like, that's like me being sponsored, if I was to be sponsored by like a drink brand, like a soda brand. I mean, what? No. So, so what I see here is, why would a woman, okay, who doesn't trust her man, as far as she can throw him, has him on Life 360, doesn't have his Google available to Google anything because he's addicted to porn, all right? Why would you let him stay out in Bonners Ferry Mondays and Thursday nights? Why was he even staying out in Bonners Ferry on Thursday nights regardless? Well, because he'd hit patients on his way back, into Sandpoint. And so he'd see people, which makes sense, right? Well, not when you're barely seeing anybody. I'm sorry, he's seeing 4 people. I'm okay. But he has his shit all scattered. Why would you ever let your husband be away like that? And I'm going to tell you why. She had no choice. You understand this? There was no money to be made because he basically got fired from Amy's stuff. So he had to be out in Bonners Ferry to make the money. That's the only place he made money. And he would write her and he would say, yeah, I just made $2,000 in 2 days. He'd make $1,000 per day, seeing these patients. And if it's $50 per, visit. And let me tell you how he also was able to snatch up patients from somebody probably like a Dr. Moore, or there's other doctors there. He was offering packages. Like, if you buy up front 10 packages, I'll give you 12. I'll give you 14, pay me $360 right now. Okay. That's how he was actually able to like windle people away, is because he was, oh yeah, here, if you buy 5, I give you the 6th one free, How about all the outstanding money that probably Drake owed all of his patients that he had when he was murdered? Jennifer Drake was so concerned about getting those people and telling them that he was murdered and she has to get their money back to them and things like that. Do you think that she did that? Do you think that she attempted to do that? Now, I bet you a lot of people were like, oh my God, don't even worry about it. Please stop. You need it. Dr. Moore couldn't change the scene of the crime. We're understanding that, right? Nobody could change the crime scene when the officers were there. For example, one more time, take a look. Let's go like this. Who changed that? But Dr. Moore did that? Dr. Moore took the box there and what, put it up his fucking ass to stop the shits? Like, who believes this shit? How is Dr. Moore's civil case with the police department thrown out? Thank God it's probably only thrown out with, without prejudice, meaning he can refile. And I believe, and I hope to God he does, because no one's broken this shit down probably like this for him to say, okay, wow. You know what I mean? Like, if I use all this, then I can show how I would then be, you're trying to violate my motherfucking rights with, you guys all tampered with this to literally be able to say that I did this. And how do I know that someone didn't slip Dr. Moore at some point a laxative that day, or that made him have the shits, and that he would be out like having to leave, mix? Who knows? Now, do I really think that was all like that? No. It was, they decided who they were going to frame after they saw video footage of things and how they were going to move the time of the crime. Nobody moved the time of the crime except for law enforcement. Isaac Funderburg, where is your motherfucking cell phone records? Aaliyah Sandlin, where are your cell phone records? Who called 911? Because I want to know a timestamp. Because it's a totally separate, different call from the call that Jennifer Drake made. So it should not be on that same incident. It should be a completely different call. And therefore it's tracked. What time did Isaac Funderburg call? And I'm going to tell you guys right now, it's before 7 o'clock. Somebody called before 7 o'clock. Now, where is that box blue? Where is that cardboard box? And if somebody out there is going to say, we moved it so that we could do what? The fuck are you talking about? That is not protocol. You don't move evidence. You don't move a crime scene. Take a look at this. Let's go one more time like so. Now, okay, take a look. There you go. See that? Okay, now the bullet traveled through the skin tissue of the left back, entering the left chest cavity in the inner space between rib 7 and 8, fracturing the superior aspect of rib number 8. It continued and perforated the lower lobe of the left lung. The lung defect is surrounded by a contusion 5 cms in dimension. Examination of the hands. The fingernails are bearably dirty. Now, the outermost layer on the upper body is a black long sleeve sweater with a V-neck. As the sweater is removed, some of the descendants' hairs are transferred onto the sweater, but originally the sweater did not have hairs on the front. The sweater is Cambridge Dry Goods brand size XL. The back of the sweater has blood soiling. The blood soiling covers the majority of the left side of the back, extending down the length of the back, and also on the right side of the back. Visualization of blood is obscured by black coloration of the sweater. Found attached near the defect from the bullet entrance on the back is a piece of woven string-like substance, which is blood soiled. A circular defect is found on the left side of the back of the sweater. Located over both elbows of the sweater are patches, which have a black and gray pattern. Also, attached to the back of the sweater is some debris, appearing to be vegetation and dirt. The entrance. An atypical entrance gunshot wound is located on the left side of the back, just below the scapula. When originally examined, there was hair surrounding this entrance wound. The wound was photographed, then the hair was shaven and submitted into evidence. The wound is located 51 1/4 inches above the bottom of the heels and is 21 1/2 inches above the buttocks. The wound is centered 3 3/8 inches to the left of the posterior midline of the back. The path of the bullet. The bullet traveled through the skin Ooh. Ready? The direction of fire. With the body in an anatomic position and using the rib fractures to define passage of the bullet at 2 points. The bullet traveled back to front, slightly left to right, and slightly upward. You motherfucks. Again, slightly left to right and slightly upward. Take a look at that picture right there. How is ISP going to possibly testify that they came to the conclusion that Dr. Drake was hit while sitting down on a stool in front of his window, leaning forward at a downward angled trajectory of the wound entrance, when the ME is saying the path of travel of this bullet is this, meaning the path of fire has to be this? This right here, if you were a detective, once you got the reporting of the ME, you would look at it and be like, wait a second, hang on. We're over here thinking Drake was sitting in his stool, leaning over, okay, and that he was shot. Well, maybe he was standing up. If he was standing up, Well, no, if someone's driving in their car, right, and they shoot, it's going to be a downward angle, right? Like the car sits higher, right? Now let's go and look at where that stool was placed. Did you guys hear anything about anything on the sweater? What was it? Dirt and vegetation. Where are the glass particles that would have been blasted into him if he was sitting on the stool? Where's the glass? Where are the shards? Who's taken a shard today? I came to play today, guys. I ain't fucking around. Now, all right, let me show you this last pic. Share screen. Oh, wait, hold on. Okay. Now, let's go back to this. Take a look. This is at 19:01 and 21 seconds, allegedly, on body cam. Since Brandon Johnson took his phone and was taking these photos based on Idaho policy, those are going to belong in discovery. Every picture that this man took with his phone of the crime scene is owed to anybody that would be charged with this homicide. Please take a look at that deep blue box that was there in presence, allegedly, right here at 19:01 hours, which is 7:01. They're going to try to say that this is really 8:01. But I have a question on how they're going to probably try to do that, because more and more now this is looking like this was way earlier. Okay? Okay. And now, regardless, why would that deep blue box be moved? Ready? I'll show you why. take a look here. Do you see where the stool is? All right. Do you see where the window is? So it's all the way to the right because he's going to be sitting on the edge of the stool. Allegedly, this is where it is. And there's the desk. And so ooh. If somebody is sitting on that, how does that get there? I'm going to show you something else. Now, let's get serious here. If you were sitting on that stool while talking on the phone, okay, this is why it was imperative that I do what? Take the measurements of how tall Dr. Drake is, sit him in that stool right there, put him up against that back wall, okay? They're saying he had to be leaning forward, right? Because otherwise his back's not accessible, right? Now, also when you're sitting in that, think about your back, your right side of your back, right? It's being covered by that deep blue whatever. Don't you think you would like be that chair would potentially be like falling over with you? Or I mean, it's just there. It's just sitting. I mean, there's nothing. There's no disturbance. Like your papers are perfectly sitting on your desk. Nothing's knocked over like that. You're like grasping for anything, and you're just like flailing yourself around because you're, in a sense, drowning in your own blood. Okay. But why would you have to move that deep blue box. Oh. Because you can't, because on the angle that you would want this to happen, it would hit that, wouldn't it? It would hit that box. And that box was not dented in any type of way. That box would have been dented. And therefore they had to move that, knowing that when they started doing the Pharaoh 3D shit, which I got my hands on. They had to move that deep blue motherfucking box because it would not possibly be able to hit him in that location based off of what they are saying. And then once the ME came back, it doesn't even matter what they said because we have an upward angled bullet. There is no way that somebody that's pointing downward into that window could make an upward how? Well, how does that happen? How does that happen? Well, the bullet got sent on a different path. Right, okay. Okay. So let's do it. Whoopsies. Let me see if that came through on here. Oh, here we go. Now we'll go through it. So here you go. Those of you guys are math people. 31 inches, okay, is where the windowsill is, right? Your bullet entry is right around between 39 and 41, okay? And then it's approximately 9 inches in from the wall. See that? The whole length of the wall window is 65 inches. I mean, do you see this shit?
How they did the measurement?
Yeah.
No, did you show them? Oh, you're doing it right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that the first
There you
one
go.
that you've shown yet?
There you go.
Because that one doesn't look as bad by itself. But
There
then
it is. That's the daddy right there. Okay. Oh, you can see the blinds definitely got hit from outside. That's what one would think, unless if you flip the blinds upside down. If you flip the blinds upside down, not turn them around back to front, but if you flip the blinds upside down, okay, that hole would be penetrating in the same spot and then just pointing the opposite way, meaning on the blinds.
Can we talk about the angle right there?
But that ain't, yeah, this, but again, you have to go up how high we're sitting. Now think about this. Picture Drake now sitting in the stool. He would have got hit in his motherfucking head. He would have had a bullet where? Why aren't one of these guys sitting in the stool after the fact to show where it would be, where it would hit on you? You understand that? That's why it was imperative to listen to where the penetrating wound was and how tall Drake is. But when you're sitting in that stool, how tall is that stool off the ground? And what it's saying Drake is he is a male who is
A strapping? How tall? Or was?
72 inches. The body measures 72 inches. The body measures 39 inches from the bottom of the feet to the waist. So then your waist is 39 inches from the bottom of the feet. So when you go then and you sit down in like a chair, a stool, then you have to go and you just look at where is the stool off of the ground? Okay.
Explain to them where.
How do you know he
is.
was sitting? That's what the police said. He was sitting, and his wife said he was sitting there, and he was shot in his
back.
That he got shot through the window
while he was sitting on the stool. But explain to them.
That's what the police. This is the police reports. The police reports said in the probable cause that he was sitting and was leaning forward when he was struck from the window, and that it was a fluke that he's dead.
One shot through the blinds, blindly through the blinds. Now, how tall is that window? Because we were there.
Yeah,
you can kind of see in this picture.
The measurements, but
like where it goes. It's pretty. I mean, it's see where it is to that guy's hip. He's probably an average male. It is about.
So now put yourself sitting down in that stool, okay? And where would your back be? Now you have to look at it like, wait, none of this even matters because the Emmy is saying that this was a slightly upward angle trajectory through his 7th and 8th rib, through his right above his scapula, below his scapula.
Why is there no debris on his back? Why is there debris on the stool? Glass debris. Did you show him?
Oh yeah.
I wonder what officer that is holding that rod. Rod.
Now, let's take a look at this. This one. Okay, this is a good angle. They did the measurement outside, thank God. All right, here it is. And it's saying that from the, look at this photo.
Let me see.
It's 11. And now see how they have it pointing down like that?
Now, this is not how you would take a photo, you guys, for anything, because you need to show where the actual ruler starts.
You have to back up, and you have to put that on a tripod. And you want
the camera on the tripod.
Yeah, you want to back all the way up so that you're seeing. It's about how far you have to go back to see where that was, unless you're trying to say that gun was at that far distance away, and that's where the muzzle was. Basically, that's the only way that you could say that this picture would be worth a damn.
I just, you already know what I think about the photographer here, and I'm sorry.
So look at 10 inches.
Nice ruler.
10 inches here over. And 11 inches up from the bottom of the.
But wait, can we just talk about this for a minute? Look at the rod, you guys. You are maybe moving it over to the left to get a better angle for the photographer, but you're messing with evidence. You're not supposed to be fiddling with those rods. But I guess it's better than having no evidence at all.
Well, they should have just waited and let the lasers. They said they were doing lasers. This isn't lasers.
It's not even on. It's
you Scott Roeder. I mean, fuck? He's like, what is this shit? What is this shit? What is this shit?
It was a fun conversation, though, you know, at least. But yes, you guys.
Like, no, but like, what is this? Well, this was just a rough draft so we could get things going.
A man is dead, you guys. And this is the investigation that went into it. And it's very important to get it right. We can't forget that someone lost their life here. And
then you're trying to blame somebody else to make them lose their life. That's how I feel.
mm-hmm, yeah. So this is serious, and they should have, I don't know, my opinion only, taken it a little bit more seriously.
Well, not if you have to cover it all up, honey. This is some serious covering up here. Okay, so then here you're back. Again, this is now you're inside.
Oh, you're getting all the bits. Is this a members only live?
No, this is why you should be a member only.
Oh, see that?
So then they took off the blinds. They put those in evidence. Look at that. Look at that ruler job right there. That is how people go and measure their dicks.
Let me see. I love it.
Look at that.
I love it.
This is just stellar material here.
That's how they measure. Oh my goodness.
This isn't.
That's not a good idea. Wait, was that a different measurement than outside?
Look at, this is how they yanked it up to ruin how it would be. Are you out of your fucking minds? Do you see this? Instead of taking the blinds off, they yanked them up, and they put the blinds in evidence after they yank this up. Why would you have to do that to get that?
I don't know why you would have to do that, but why you would never do that.
You wanted to take the. This is fucking it. This is how you tamper with motherfucking evidence.
But listen, when was the Pharaoh done? Was it done before or after this?
Who the fuck knows?
Because if they did the Pharaoh after...
I was waiting to drop the bomb. There you guys go. Now let's talk about it. You want to call in and tell me on my channel that I'm some fucking crazy conspiracy theorist? This is not what the fuck you do with evidence. Those blinds are now what? Incredible. Incredible. Again, look at the chipping in the glass. The bullet came from inside. Oh, absolutely the bullet came from inside. They then flipped these blinds. The reason that I said no to the whole flipping of the blinds is because when you think of flipping the blinds, you think like, oh, well, I'm going to twist it just one way. No, you need to twist it from top to bottom, not side to side. If you flip the blinds top to bottom, then you're putting them inside out. And that's exactly what Mr. Rhoda said. He said, look at that shit. It's like inside out. Those blinds were flipped, not switched front, like turning a book. No, it was like flipped, like if you're flipping over pages in a memo pad that you have to turn.
Show them on camera.
You know, like this. Where's my memo pad? Here.
You need a flip book.
This is what I'm talking about. When you're flipping over evidence here. You're
flip-flopping evidence.
You're flipping this way. The blinds, not this way. Because then you would put the hole on the opposite side.
Oh my God, the visual aid is just everything right there. That's all we needed.
So
the brains now. Is it Friday?
It feels like a Friday, doesn't it?
It's been feeling like a Friday.
I fucking love it. So when you want to talk about how, and if people out there are going to say, hey, Dr. Moore got off on a technicality, okay? I don't know who in Bonners Ferry thinks that. I don't know who in Idaho thinks that, okay? Dr. Moore didn't get off on anything. Dr. Moore is the person that they still want to come for all the gusto. When I called in, that's exactly, they think they have their guy. Well, that's funny. Why is everybody retiring? Why is everybody leaving? Well, that's fine. I guess I'll just continue to keep proving it. Girl, you didn't see it? You didn't see my beginning of my show? Lana, girl, you were wearing my shirt.
Heather was dimple. Yep.
Girl, this is, look at this. I feel like I'm going to the New Kids on the Block concert tonight. Hang it tough. Hang it tough. Oh, you're tough enough. So, you guys, this shit's just, come on, man. And this is ISP's work. So the same people that did the Idaho 4 case, now you want to talk about, now we're going to go to the Idaho 4 case. These are the same people that were trained, this is their work. This is not Bonner's Ferry doing this. This is ISP came in to do this. ISP is doing Idaho 4. Okay. This is their work. This is what they do. This is how they do things.
This is how we do.
This is period. Like exclamation point.
I don't know.
And if anybody thinks that I'm making this up, then I think that you're blind and you may have problems hearing. Because everything that I say, y'all, there ain't nobody out there that brings you the fucking receipts. You come on over here to the transparency. There's a lot of things that you may not want to hear, but you might want to listen. I'll be the first person to say it. If Brian Kohlberger is guilty of sin, I'll be the first person to say he is guilty of sin. Show me the evidence. If y'all did this type of work in the Idaho 4 case, I don't believe that anybody should be convicted off of this type of bullshit. This is insanity. This man, Brian Drake, has dirt all through his fingernails. No chiropractor has dirt in their nails. No chiropractor has a soiled shirt in dirt, in vegetation from outside. This man has, you heard it in the autopsy, there is no reminiscence of any glass shards. If you were sitting on that stool, you would have gotten sprayed with the shards if it in fact happened like that.
Well, there would also not be, it would be a silhouette of your body. There wouldn't be anything on the stool. You know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely. You don't got to tell me twice.
Right. So it would cover you. You guys all know it's rudimentary, but I hope that Miss, the widow, Jennifer Drake, her children are owed a lot more because her kids
they should
died.
sue the fuck out of the fucking...
And, I mean, her
wrongful
husband
death.
died.
Wrongful death. The suit needs to go to ding, ding, ding.
But I would want to know what happened to my husband, and that's my opinion only at this juncture, because it's just sad. He didn't deserve this, and you guys should know what happened. And Lana's just over here. I don't know if Miss Drake is aware of all of this stuff, if she's ever examined it or knows how to. But these are questions she should be asking ISP as to what happened to her husband.
Yes. ISP is the one that told her that Dr. Moore was responsible. You understand that?
No, I know.
So to me, like, if I'm Jennifer Drake, if I was to be questioned, say, Lana, why do you think that why do you think that Dr. Moore is responsible for your husband's death? Well, I'll give you a couple reasons why. First being, the police provided me with the discovery, and they told me that this is who their guy was, and they showed me all the videos, surveillance videos, to say that this is when his truck was driving around, and that this is the time of the crime.
But you have to understand, Lana, that not everyone thinks in those terms. So for Miss Drake, it might be that she doesn't know.
What would be her reasoning to think that?
Because the police told her, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you just
then she's going to say, and then she's going to say, and then he confessed to it. That's what they're going to say next.
But you're
and
also
then
trained
to it.
You're also trained to accept what authority tells you, and unless someone comes along like you who can present something and say, listen, this doesn't look normal. There's something off here. And I feel that Mrs. Drake is very good with her words, and she should go in and ask to see some more evidence from ISB to explain this one miracle shot in the dark that ends up doing this. Maybe she wasn't able to look at crime scene photos. If anyone out there knows Mrs. Jennifer Drake, if she could look at this episode and look at, just look at the stool. That's it. Just look at the stool. How is your husband sitting there?
What about the autopsy that says that it was an upward, slightly upward angle trajectory shot? And then
I just feel like, there needs to be some answers, and I feel horrible for, her family. And I don't want to see him not get justice for whoever did this to him, but it's not Dr. Dan Moore. It's not.
And also, I think there's huge questions right now on if that shot came through the inside or the outside of the building. Also, there's huge questions surrounding what time this actually happened, what time this was at.
So shoot Lana an email if you know Mrs. Drake, or if you are Mrs. Jennifer Drake, and maybe you don't have all the information, and Lana can share that info with you and let you know a little bit more of what's going on. Not everyone has the eye, right? Not everyone can look at things this way.
Right.
So
right.
I would urge her to do that.
I hope that's Jennifer Drake right now. So you guys, we cannot be going around and letting the people that we put all the faith in go and ruin innocent men and women's lives. How in the world does Van Leuven, maybe I should just call Van Leuven right now and ask him, hey, Detective Van Leuven, can I talk to you about some stuff here? How do you sleep at night? How the fuck do you sleep at night? Now, with that said, we're going to talk about the Idaho 4 case. But before that happens, and everybody says they want to know about this case and the timeline, and Lana, why do you think certain things? Well, here's a video that myself and Bella put together, all right? And this is the pilot we did of the Drake Moore case.
I am a detective sergeant employed by the Idaho State Police.
Can you guys hear it on your end?
This affidavit is intended to show only that there is sufficient probable cause for the requested warrant and does not set forth all of my knowledge about this matter. I have set forth only the facts necessary to support a finding of probable cause and any facts that would lead the court to not find probable cause on the charges. My knowledge of the facts set forth in this affidavit are based upon my own observations or the observations of other sworn officers who've relayed their personal observations to me for purposes of this probable cause affidavit. This investigation involves the following statutes. A. Murder in the second degree, a felony, Idaho Code 18-4003.
Second-degree murder came a few months later. A fellow chiropractor in town, Dr. Daniel Moore, but the case against him quickly fell apart when his alleged confession was ruled by a district court to be coerced. However, prosecutors appealed, and the fight went to Idaho Supreme Court, which dismissed various parts of the argument.
The end result is that charges could be refiled against Moore, but as of tonight, there is no one facing criminal charges for the death of Dr. Drake.
The investigation into what happened that March evening is ongoing, and now the Drake family is getting creative to try to generate new tips and leads.
And they tell her, "Help me, Haley," they want justice. They will stop at nothing to get it.
Small town community, closely knit Bonners Ferry, Idaho.
We've got a lot of family-oriented people, a lot of people that attend local churches.
The address for about 2,500, home of the Badgers. Nestled along the Kootenai River, the Selkirk Mountains almost serving as protectors from evil until they couldn't.
How did you find out what happened?
I was on the phone with them when it happened.
Just like the community where murder victim Dr. Brian Drake would launch his successful chiropractor business. His wife says he was wholesome, a man of God, loved music and family.
He was amazing. We had it all. We really did.
Brian and Jennifer married in '99. Love at first sight.
Oh, it was.
Was it?
Yes, we met at church.
Brian's career took them to Montana, Texas, and finally North Idaho, welcoming babies along the way.
We have 4. We have 3 boys and a girl. Very few people ever win the lottery like I did.
They had hit that sweet spot in life by the time Brian, Dr. Drake, opened up his own office along this stretch of Main Street in Bonners Ferry.
A great chiropractor, as opinion from his wife.
But also his patients.
Very compassionate. He helped me out a lot.
She didn't want her face on camera. Who could blame her after what happened on March 12th, 2020?
He was an innocent man who...
Sorry.
It was killed at the end of a business workday.
While on the phone with his wife.
It's a memory of sitting next to my daughter when it happened, and I'm the one who had to call 911.
Responding officers found her husband of 21 years executed as he sat at his desk.
He did not know. It was behind him. Somebody shot him in the back through a window, and by the time he realized what had happened, the next step was unconsciousness.
A space once dedicated to healing turned the first murder scene in city limits since the early 1960s. And despite, as Jennifer calls it, diligent police work, 3 years later, the case remains open, in desperate need of perhaps you.
We really are hoping that somebody will come up with some more information to substantiate what we already know.
Billboards like this one along 95 are trying to appeal to whoever that could be.
We have a $10,000 reward.
Brian's face, front and center, a some 672 square foot reminder to the public of what already consumes Jennifer's mind.
As the saying goes, for evil to triumph, good men do nothing. And I believe that we owe it to my husband, and not just my husband, but my children and the community at large, that something is done.
Haley Gunther.
I will fight for closure, and I will fight for justice.
On March 12th, 2020, Dr. Drake had spent the day seeing patients at his office in Bonners Ferry. His office in Bonners Ferry was located at 6811 Main Street, Suite B, Bonners Ferry, Boundary County, Idaho. This office was located on the east side of US 95. Dr. Drake shared the building with a financial advisor, Kip Hartman. This building is sited at a 45-degree angle to the north-south compass bearing. Dr. Drake's office was located on the south corner of the building and consisted of 2 rooms, a large outer waiting room and a smaller exam room where Dr. Drake saw patients. In the exam room was the exam table, a small desk, and stool. There was a window in the exam room that was on the southwest wall of the building. This wall was approximately 16 feet from the building to the southwest. This building contained the Far North Coffee Lodge. The space between the 2 buildings was the drive-through for the Far North Coffee Lodge. Dr. Drake's wife, Jennifer, called him at 6:42 p.m. from their home in Hayden. It was routine for Dr. Drake and his wife to have a telephone conversation on the nights he stayed in Bonners Ferry. He advised her he was seeing late patients who were still there and would call her when he was finished. These patients were later identified as Eldora Gatchell, a long-time and regular patient of Dr. Drake, as well as Gatchell's brother, Caleb Kakoa Nazara, who was visiting from Hawaii. Gatchell and Nazara later confirmed that they were present when this call came in and that they heard Dr. Drake's side of the conversation. This call lasted 13 seconds. After being seen by Dr. Drake, Gatchell and Nazara reported seeing a white, large pickup truck stopped in the drive-thru between the two buildings as they were leaving the office. They reported the vehicle was stopped pointed toward the northwest and had its lights on. Dr. Drake called his wife at 7:17 p.m. Mrs. Drake was at their shared residence in Hayden, Kootenai County, Idaho, at the time of this call. After discussing routine issues for several minutes, Mrs. Drake said her husband exclaimed that something had struck him in the side. Then he said he thought someone had shot him through the window. He then stopped responding to Mrs. Drake. Mrs. Drake hung up to call 911 after a short period of time. Mrs. Drake estimated the time from Dr. Drake no longer responding until when she hung up was approximately 15 seconds. Based on the timestamp from the phones and Mrs. Drake's estimation of time of when he stopped responding puts the time of the shooting at approximately 7:26 p.m. Mrs. Drake dialed 911 to report what she had heard. The dispatch center in Coeur d'Alene patched her call first up to the Bonner County Dispatch Center, and they patched it up to the Boundary County Sheriff's Dispatch Center. An eyewitness named Isaac Funderburg was outside of his apartment near his car when he reported hearing a gunshot from across the street. Funderburg's apartment was located directly across the street from Dr. Drake's office. Funderburg later advised he observed an adult male dressed in dark-colored clothing walking northwest from between Dr. Drake's building and a fence on the north side of the building immediately after hearing the shot. Funderburg said the figure reminded him of one of the clerks that worked at the Liberty gas station, but could not be sure because of how dark it was. Funderburg said he yelled to the figure words to the effect, "Hey, was that you?" referring to the gunshot. Funderburg said the man looked back at him and then ran north on the sidewalk of Main Street and then to the northeast toward the State Farm Insurance office. He later said the figure was running in the direction of what he described as a pediatric office or a kid's dentist office. He described this building as an A-frame. Funderburg's fiancée, Aaliyah Sandolin, also heard the shot and observed the figure running away to the northeast. Funderburg said he immediately got in his car and tried to find the man so he could take a picture of him. He said he dialed 911 to report the shooting within a couple of minutes of it happening. The call to dispatch from Funderburg came in at 7:29 p.m. Funderburg's call into the Boundary Dispatch actually came in before Jennifer Drake's 911 call by the time it had been patched through from Kootenai to Bonner counties. Funderburg was unable to locate the individual. Funderburg and Sadolin were later shown several photographic lineups, including one that contained a photo of suspect Moore, but did not identify any individual with certainty. Boundary County Sheriff's deputies, as well as Bonner Ferry police officers, responded to the scene. Responding officers found a bullet hole through the window of the exam room of Dr. Drake's office. Officers found the door to Dr. Drake's office to be locked and broke it down to get Dr. Drake and to clear the building. Officers found Dr. Drake lying on the floor of his office, unresponsive. Medical personnel responded and pronounced Dr. Drake deceased. Law enforcement secured the scene. Later that night, Assistant Chief of Police for Bonners Ferry, Marty Ryan, asked the Idaho State Police Investigations Division to process the scene and ultimately take over the investigation. I, Detective Sergeant Van Leuven, accompanied by several other ISP personnel, responded the next morning and began our investigation. Bonners Ferry PD had identified a possible suspect the previous evening and were still in the process of tracking this individual down. This person was found and interviewed by the FBI Violent Crimes Task Force. His person, hotel room, vehicle, and belongings were searched pursuant to court-ordered warrants. He was ultimately found not to have been involved in the shooting. On March 13, 2020, I received a properly signed search warrant at approximately 3 p.m. and made entry into the building. I found Dr. Drake lying on his back in his exam room with a cell phone near his body. I seized this phone as evidence. I later found this phone number ending in 9635 with Verizon as the carrier. His wife later advised me he used this phone primarily as his personal phone. I also seized a mobile phone from a desk in the office. I later determined this phone number to end with 7757 with Verizon as the carrier. His wife later advised me he used this phone primarily for work purposes. I found one hole through the double-pane window of exam room. This window looked out to the far north Coffee Lodge drive-thru. The metal mini blinds on the window were closed and had a corresponding hole. The hole through the window and blinds were consistent with being caused by a small caliber bullet being fired by a standing adult shooting from immediately outside the window into the office space. The location of the entry wound, considered with the trajectory of the bullet in Dr. Drake's body, indicated Dr. Drake was likely sitting on a stool located in front of the window and was facing away from the window. We located a single bullet hole in Dr. Drake's back with no apparent exit wound. The Boundary County coroner, Mick Millett, was on scene and took custody of the body. We assisted Coroner Millett with placing Dr. Drake's body in the bag and witnessed Coroner Millett sealing the bag with a numbered seal. Dr. Drake's body was later transported to the Spokane County Medical Examiner's office, where Dr. Sally S. Aiken performed an autopsy on March 16, 2020. Dr. Aiken attributed the cause of death to a penetrating gunshot wound. Dr. Aiken further found that the bullet had entered the body just below the left scapula and 3 3/8 inches to the left of the midline of the back. The bullet grazed and perforated the left pulmonary artery, causing abundant hemorrhage in the chest cavity. A small caliber handgun bullet was recovered from Dr. Drake's left pectoral muscle. This bullet has been analyzed by 2 forensic laboratories. I have been advised by ISP forensic scientist Stuart Jacobson that the bullet is in good condition and a match is likely if we recover the murder weapon. As the investigation continued, detectives obtained surveillance footage from 18 local businesses in the area around the homicide scene. Numerous lines of inquiry have been followed. Several persons of interest have been looked at and alibis established. Our office has conducted over 200 interviews during the course of this investigation to date. Dr. Daniel Moore and the gas leak. In late April or early May, I learned Dr. Daniel Moore, another chiropractor in Bonners Ferry, had experienced a gas leak at his office. Dr. Moore owns and operates Moore Chiropractic, which is located at 6843 Main Street in Bonners Ferry, Idaho. Dr. Moore's office is located approximately 500 feet to the north of Dr. Drake's office. Dr. Moore's office is located directly north of the A-frame building and State Farm Insurance building referenced by eyewitness Funderburg. This gas leak event occurred on Sunday, March 15, 2020, 3 days after Dr. Drake was murdered. Dr. Moore had originally been contacted on March 24, 2020 by detectives Alderson and Lehman. That conversation was not recorded. Detective Alderson and I re-interviewed Dr. Moore at his office on May 6, 2020. This interview was recorded and transcribed. Dr. Moore said his Verizon mobile phone number ending in 2995. And he also said Mick Millet's phone number was redacted. This number for Millet was the same number I have used in the past to contact Millet in his capacity as Banner County Coroner. Dr. Moore advised he had gone alone to his office on Sunday, March 15, 2020, for the purpose of changing a furnace filter on his gas-fired furnace located in the basement of the building. He said he was overcome by a gas leak and became unconscious. He said he did not notice the odor from the gas because he has anosmia. He said anosmia as if it were common knowledge what anosmia was. After looking it up, I later learned anosmia was the loss of the sense of smell. He said he had suffered from anosmia since he was a child, when he had his nose cauterized because of nosebleeds. He said his friend coroner Mick Millet, who has a key to his office, found him and got him out of the office. Dr. Moore said he was really close friends with Coroner Millet and socializes with him at Millet's home most nights of the week. Millet's home is approximately 300 feet to the east of Dr. Moore's chiropractic office. Dr. Moore said he has no memory of being overcome by the gas. Dr. Moore said he was concerned his wife was going to be upset because he had almost died 3 times in the past. He said he almost died of pneumonia 4 years earlier and was in a coma for a month. Dr. Moore then said, "Then I got paralysis on my left foot, so I can't even run anymore." This statement was unsolicited. I had not asked him if he was able to run. In talking about the gas leak, Dr. Moore stated, "The only thing I can think of is that it was loose, and it just got somehow a little bit looser, and then gas tends to fill up. It's heavier than air, and it fills up. It must have just filled up, and then the fact that the Sunday I left a door open as I came up, I guess, and that's why the whole place was full." In making this statement, Dr. Moore has incorrectly stated that natural gas is heavier than air and settles. Natural gas is lighter than air and rises through any crack or opening. Dr. Moore further stated that some of the ladies who worked in his office had been complaining of headaches the previous week, but none of them had reported any gas odor. After the interview was over, I asked to see the location of the gas leak. Dr. Moore took me across the hall from the middle exam room we had been using for the interview. Dr. Moore opened a door that led to a short, steep staircase to the basement. Dr. Moore showed us the line where the gas had leaked around the fitting. Dr. Moore then pointed at a furnace filter on the ground and advised it was the furnace filter he had purportedly left after being overcome by gas almost 8 weeks earlier. Dr. Moore said he did not know who killed Dr. Drake and that he did not have anything to do with it. Dr. Moore said he did not know Dr. Drake and had never met him. Dr. Moore said he had never heard anything negative about Dr. Drake and did not know who would want to hurt him. Dr. Moore said Dr. Drake practiced a different type of care than he did, where Dr. Drake did more massage therapy, while Dr. Moore did more work with laser therapy and adjusting. Dr. Moore said he wanted to see less patients, not more people. Dr. Moore said he had been practicing for 23 years and is as busy as he wants to be. When asked about his ownership of firearms, Dr. Moore said he was, quote, not a real fan of guns since my dad was murdered when I was 3, end quote. When asked about this incident, he stated, my mom and him had separated and he went down for work, and then my grandparents would never talk about it. I'm kind of always kept in the dark about it. First somebody said he committed suicide, and then later, at a family reunion, they said, well, it's kind of hard to commit suicide when it's a rifle in the back of your head. So, I've just never been much of a fan of guns. Dr. Moore said he had purchased a small caliber handgun for his wife a few years earlier from the North 40 store in Ponderay, Idaho. He said he bought it for her for a concealed carry class she was taking. He said she decided against carrying it after talking to their attorney, who described the possible liability she would be taking on by carrying a firearm. When pressed, Dr. Moore was unable to describe the pistol's make, model, or caliber. Dr. Moore was even unable to say if it was a revolver or a semi-auto. In describing the gun, Moore said, she's got it, meaning his wife carrying, but we just probably stuck it someplace. It's a tiny little thing. I don't know, whatever a small caliber, it would be a 22 or something, but it's a tiny little gun. But I mean, if it's important, we can find it for you. I told Dr. Moore I would like to take a look at that gun if he could find it. He said he would look for it. I later obtained a copy of the firearms transfer paperwork from North 40, showing he purchased a Ruger LCP 380 on December 24th, 2015. Dr. Moore called me the next day and left a voicemail message saying he had found the gun and that it was a Ruger LCP. It's a 308 and it's a clip. He said he would leave it at the front desk if we wanted to come take a look at it. Knowing the murder weapon was not a Ruger LCP, we did not follow up with an inspection of that firearm. Moore said he was at Millette's house on the night Dr. Drake was murdered, but could not be sure of the times. I asked him if he was there at 7 p.m., and he said he didn't know because he later became ill with kidney stones and had diarrhea and left Millette's house to go to his office to look for medicine but couldn't find any. So he went back to Millette's house and got some Motrin. Moore said he was with Millette when the call came in about the shooting. He said, yeah, he just said, and I had come and just gotten some anti-diarrhea stuff, and I said I'm going home. And I think he was there until like 4 in the morning trying to take care of the situation. Dr. Moore told me his telephone number ending in 2995. This is consistent with record checks of his number. This number is associated with a Verizon mobile telephone. This interview was recorded and transcribed. Later, on May 6, 2020, Detective Alderson and I interviewed Fire Chief David Winey about responding to the gas leak at Dr. Moore's office. Chief Winey said the fitting was just finger tight. He thought it was very odd and never seen that before in his experience. On May 19th, 2020, Detective Alderson and I interviewed Brian Scrimshire. Scrimshire was employed by Avista and had responded to the gas leak to determine its cause and origin. Scrimshire is an experienced local rep for Avista with 30 years of experience. He is certified in the detection of gas leaks and was up to date on his certifications regarding leak detection when he responded to the reported gas leak at Dr. Moore's office. Given the nature of the leak in this case, it was Scrimshire's opinion that the gas fitting was intentionally loosened. Scrimshire further stated that it was not reasonable that a person would suffer a headache from a gas leak and not notice the odor. This interview was recorded and transcribed. On May 19th, 2020, Detective Alderson and I interviewed a source of information, here known as SOI-1, who had been a patient of Dr. Moore and later Dr. Drake. SOI-1 reported having been a patient of Dr. Moore going back 20 years. After Dr. Drake came to town, SOI-1 started to see him and was very happy with the care received. SOI-1 said other members of the community had left Dr. Moore and became patients of Dr. Drake. SOI-1 said Dr. Drake's practice was very busy and he was seeing patients not just locally, but also some of who drove from Montana to see him. SOI-1 said patients that saw Dr. Drake commented favorably about Dr. Drake. SOI-1 said that in the spring of 2019, Dr. Drake had appeared upset, and when asked what was wrong, he had said, "He doesn't want me up here," or "They don't want me up here." This interview was recorded and transcribed. However, this recording is being held back to protect the identity of the SOI until such time as the court orders the identity of SOI-1 revealed. Dr. Drake's patient files had been seized as evidence pursuant to a search warrant. A review of Dr. Drake's patient intake files show over 30 of his patients had seen Dr. Moore in the past. On May 19th, 2020, Detective Alderson and I interviewed Coroner Mick Millette at the Bonners Ferry City Hall. Millette advised that prior to coming in for our interview, he had been at home working on a drywall project. Millette confirmed he and Dr. Moore were close friends and that Dr. Moore and Dr. Moore's wife Karen are guests at his house multiple evenings per week. I asked Millette about the gas leak incident. Millett said he had noticed Dr. Moore's pickup parked at his office around 8:30 a.m. on that Sunday morning as he was on his way to breakfast with another friend. He said he thought it was odd that Dr. Moore was at his office on a Sunday morning. Upon his return trip to his house at approximately 10:30 or 11 a.m., he noticed Dr. Moore's vehicle was still at the office. Millett stopped to check on Dr. Moore. Millett said the office door was locked, so he used his key to get in. Upon making entry to the office, he smelled the strong gas odor indicating a gas leak. Millett said he called out to Dr. Moore and made his way inside the office, where he found Dr. Moore getting up from an exam table in the middle exam room. Dr. Moore appeared woozy to Millett. Millett took Dr. Moore outside the building and dialed directly into dispatch to report the leak. The fire department arrived on scene, shut off the gas, and aired out the building. Millett said Dr. Moore had gotten in his truck and had left the scene. Millett asked an EMT to go to Dr. Moore's residence to check on him. The EMT was concerned about going alone, and Millett agreed to go with him. Dr. Moore had gone home and went to bed. Millett took him to the hospital, and they put Dr. Moore on oxygen. Millett said Dr. Moore told him he had been changing a furnace filter, felt woozy, and laid down. I asked Millett if Dr. Moore thought what was making him sick was a gas leak. Millett said no. He said Dr. Moore had contracted a disease after going on an underground raft trip in Belize 4 or 5 years prior, and that after coming back, Dr. Moore was in a coma on a respirator at the Kootenai Medical Center for 6 weeks recovering. Millett said after Dr. Moore recovered from this illness, he had not have a good sense of smell and did not notice foul odors. I asked Millett if he thought Dr. Moore attempted to commit suicide due to feelings of guilt over murdering Dr. Drake. Millett said no. Millett said if Dr. Moore had problems with Dr. Drake, he would have talked to him about the problems, and Dr. Moore had never mentioned anything about Dr. Drake. Millett said he didn't think Dr. Moore had ever met Dr. Drake. Millett advised that Dr. Moore had a very busy practice and did not need patients. Millett said Dr. Moore's son Colton owns guns and has a gun safe at Dr. Moore's residence that holds 10 to 15 firearms. Millett said he thought Colton owned a .243 rifle and a shotgun. Millett said Dan and Karen took a concealed weapons class a couple of years ago, and Karen has a pistol. I'm not sure if it's I want to say it's a .380. I don't know if it's a .380 or 9mm, but it's a purse gun. And when she went through the class and then went through, there was like a law part of it, and basically found out the liability in carrying a gun. And I don't think she's ever carried it. And I don't think she shot it over once or twice. I think she got it, and that's been several years. I asked Millett if he knew if Moore had access to a revolver. Millett said, not that I'm aware of. I mean, he'd have access to any of my guns, but I've got a .357 revolver, and I don't think it's been shot in 10 years, and he wouldn't know where my guns are at. Millett further advised that Dr. Moore was a co-owner of a gun store in Troy, Montana called Booze and Bait. A subsequent Google search led me to the website boozeandbait.com. This website advertises bait, tackle, sporting goods, fishing, hunting licenses, liquor, wine, and guns and ammo for sale. The website lists the address for Booze and Bait at In Troy, Montana, a subsequent search with the Montana Secretary of State's office shows Booze and Bait LLC is a domestic limited liability company in good active standing and lists the manager member as Daniel L. Moore. Millett said Dr. Moore was with him during the time of the shooting. Millett said Dr. Moore arrived at his house no later than 6:15 p.m. and did not leave until after he heard about the shooting on his pager. Millett said he was very sure about the times. Millett said Dr. Moore did not leave his house until around 8:30 p.m. or so because Dr. Moore wasn't feeling good. He came back to Millett's house 15 to 20 minutes later asking for Imodium and then headed home. Later in the interview, I again pressed Millett about giving Dr. Moore an alibi, and Millett said, "That night I know where he was." I asked him if he was sure. He replied, "I'm absolutely positive." This interview was recorded and transcribed. Millett's demeanor throughout the interview was calm and relaxed. His answers seemed genuine and logical. Dr. Moore's primary vehicle is a white four-door 2019 Toyota Tundra with Idaho Trout license plates. On the day of the homicide, Thursday, March 12, 2020, Dr. Moore told me he closed his business at 1 p.m. that day. In his interview, Dr. Moore told me that he said he'd gone over to Mick Millett's house that evening. In his interview, Mick Millett told me Dr. Moore had come over to his house that evening alone because Dr. Moore's wife Karen was out of town. During the course of this investigation, my office has reviewed security camera footage obtained from numerous local businesses. Not all timestamps are accurate. Some are off by 1 or 3 hours exactly. One is off by a few minutes, and most are right on. The correct time on any camera was established by viewing common events recorded by more than one camera. The footage in some of the clips cannot individually be used to identify Dr. Moore's Tundra. However, by linking one video to the next in sequence, each video validates the other. After analyzing footage from 8 of those businesses, we observed Dr. Moore's truck driving from the direction of his residence to Millett's residence. We later observed the truck leaving Millett's house just prior to the shooting. The truck is then seen circling the area where the shooting occurs 2 times, including driving down the area between the 2 buildings directly outside the window where the shooting occurs and then stopping for several seconds. Dr. Moore's truck then drives north on Main Street from Dr. Drake's office and parks at Dr. Moore's office. After parking, the taillights flash in a manner consistent with Dr. Moore locking his truck with a keyless remote. A human figure is then seen walking from the direction of Dr. Moore's office toward Dr. Drake's office 1.5 minutes before the shooting occurs. As previously established, the shooting occurs at 7:26 p.m. A human figure is then seen walking and then running back from the area of Dr. Drake's office toward Dr. Moore's office 1.5 minutes after the shooting. The lights on the back of Dr. Moore's truck again flash in a manner consistent with Dr. Moore unlocking his truck using his keyless entry. His truck then is seen driving back toward Millett's house, 300 feet away. Eyewitness Funderburg's vehicle can be seen driving north on Hillside Alley before doing a U-turn on Harrison Street next to Dr. Moore's office. After 5 minutes, Dr. Moore's truck is then seen leaving Millett's house and driving a circuitous route back toward Dr. Moore's house that conspicuously avoids the crime scene. on August 27th, 2020. We contacted Dr. Moore by telephone and asked him to come to the Boundary County Sheriff's Annex. After arriving at the annex, I told Dr. Moore that I wanted to speak with him more about the investigation. I recorded this interview. Detective Tolson and I initially conducted this interview. I asked Dr. Moore a few questions in review of his earlier statements to me. I advised Dr. Moore of his Miranda rights and asked him if he understood them. Dr. Moore responded, "Sure." I advised Dr. Moore that we knew he was the person responsible for shooting Dr. Drake. Dr. Moore denied shooting Dr. Drake. I again told Dr. Moore that we already knew he was the person responsible, but that we did not know the reason why, and that his intent when shooting the gun was an important factor in deciding what he should be charged with. Dr. Moore said, "Well, I didn't shoot him, and I'm sorry, but that's what it is, so I guess if you're going to do that, I need to get an attorney." Detective Tolson and I left the room. Bonners Ferry Police Assistant Chief Marty Ryan had been monitoring the interview. I discussed with Assistant Chief Ryan what Dr. Moore said about an attorney. I reviewed the recording of what Dr. Moore had said. We both agreed that Dr. Moore's statement regarding his Miranda rights were not clear. After an interval of approximately 25 minutes, Assistant Chief Ryan spoke again with Dr. Moore. Dr. Moore ultimately confessed to shooting Dr. Drake and gave details of the shooting as well as whereabouts of the murder weapon. I later booked Dr. Moore into the Boundary County Jail for second-degree murder. Conclusion. I submit that this affidavit supports probable cause to charge Dr. Daniel L. Moore with second-degree murder and in addition for a warrant to search the location described in Attachment A for the items listed in Attachment B.
There you guys have it. The untold story. Yeah. So if you guys want to hear an amazing podcast, listen up. You'll enjoy it because it's nothing but the facts, nothing but the motherfucking facts. And with that said, I will be doing a live launching it here momentarily for those of you guys that have ever followed my work with the Chris Watts case. Join me. Peace.